Think you know every muscle car General Motors ever made? Think again. Beneath the spotlight of the Camaro, Chevel SS, and GTO, there were machines buried by emissions laws, corporate silence, or simply born at the wrong time. Some were built to run 11-second quarter miles, guaranteed or your money back. Others were so fast, GM refused to acknowledge their existence, and a few wore tuxedos on the outside, while hiding rebellious V8 hearts underneath. In this video, we uncover 12 of the strangest and most forgotten GM muscle cars, from outlaw builds that got shut down to factory monsters built in microscopic numbers. Each one tells a story, and maybe teaches us a lesson. Are you ready? Let's begin the hunt for GM's forgotten V8 beasts. 1973 to 1975, Hurst Olds W30. In the early 1970s, as emissions laws, fuel crises, and skyrocketing insurance choked the muscle car scene, most automakers backed down. But Hurst Performance, famous for their drag racing shifters, chose a different path: rebellion. They didn't do it alone. Partnering with Oldsmobile, they created the Hurst Olds W30, based on the new colonnade-style Cutlass. Beneath the classy coupe skin sat a 455 cubic inch Rocket 5.8, producing 270 to 300 SAE net horsepower and over 390 pound-feet of torque. On paper, those numbers may seem modest, but in the post-1972 net rating world, this was still a serious brute. A standout feature was the Hurst His and Hers dual-gate shifter, giving drivers the option of relaxed automatic cruising or drag-style gear control. With its bold two-tone paint, Hurst badging, and oversized hood scoop, the car made a loud statement without saying a word. Only around 2,500 units were built in 1973, and even fewer in later years. This wasn't just another muscle car, it was proof that even in a time ruled by regulations, there were still rebels who broke the mold. 1998. Pontiac Firebird CanAm WS6. By the late 1990s, many believed the muscle car was dead, but Pontiac had other ideas. In a bold move, they turned the sleek Firebird coupe into a V8 monster in a model's body, called the 1998 CanAm WS6. From the outside, the WS6 looked like a pre-modded street machine. Twin ram air scoops on the raised hood, performance exhaust, 17-inch wheels, and sport-tuned suspension made it stand out even when parked. But the real threat lay under the skin. Under the hood was a 5.7-liter LS1 V8, making 320 horsepower and 345 pound-feet of torque. No small feat for a car approaching the new millennium. The WS6 could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 5 seconds and run the quarter mile in 13.3 seconds, rivaling many expensive European sports cars of the time. What made it special was that it felt like a factory-built tuner car. It wasn't as flashy as a Camaro SS or as iconic as a Corvette, but it had its own soul, aggressive, raw, and deeply satisfying. Today, stock WS6s are increasingly rare. And for those who've driven one, they'll tell you, this car doesn't just go fast, it makes you feel alive. 1974 Buick Century Grand Sport Stage 1. 1974 was a strange year in American muscle car history. Automakers were backing down, engines were being strangled by emissions laws, and performance seemed like a fading memory. But in that quiet, Buick quietly released a car that surprised many: the Century Grand Sport Stage 1. At first glance, you'd think it was just another mid-size colonnade coupe. No graphics, no spoilers, no thunderous sound to hint at the beast within. But under the hood was something different. A 455 Stage 1 V8, conservatively rated at 245 SAE net horsepower and 380 pound-feet of torque. But don't be fooled by the numbers. With a few mild upgrades, headers, timing tweaks, or carb tuning, this Buick could hang with early 70s legends. In fact, it could run the quarter mile in around 15 seconds, a shocker for a car that was never officially branded a muscle car. Buick added performance suspension, a high-ratio rear axle, and a firm-shifting TH400 automatic. The result? A true sleeper. It didn't need to scream. It just needed to move. Today, the Grand Sport Stage 1 is rarely mentioned. But for those who've gripped its steering wheel, it was a car that made you feel like you were riding on a secret no one else knew. 1973 Chevrolet Chevel Lagona 454. When people think of the Chevel, most recall the late 60s SS 396 or SS 454. But few realize that one of the most influential Chevels in NASCAR history came from a time no one expected. The 1973 Chevel Lagona 454. At the time, Chevrolet was transitioning to the new Colonnade design, heavier, safer, and less appealing to performance fans. But the Laguna was different. Positioned above the Malibu, it featured a rounded aerodynamic nose and a refined suspension setup. What made this car special lay under the hood. A 454 LS4 V8, rated at 245 SAE net horsepower and 380 pound-feet of torque. The numbers might not shout, but in the real world, the Laguna could run the quarter mile in just 15 seconds. Impressive for a full-trimmed coupe with AC and comfort features. What most people don't know is this. The Laguna's aerodynamic design paved the way for the Laguna S3, a NASCAR dominator in later years. While many muscle cars faded out in this era, the Laguna 454 quietly laid the groundwork for true racing success. 1968, Oldsmobile Hurst Olds 442. In 1968, General Motors had a strange rule. No mid-size car, except the Corvette, could have an engine larger than 400 cubic inches. But Hurst Performance and Oldsmobile found a loophole. Instead of releasing the car through GM's official channels, they launched the Hurst Olds 442 as a special edition, completed and sold through a private network. This was a street-legal monster powered by a Rocket 455 V8, making 390 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque, numbers that dwarfed the competition. Each car was painted pearl white with black and gold stripes, sported a rear spoiler, and featured the iconic Hurst dual-gate shifter. This wasn't just a muscle car, it was a statement. It broke rules, bent the system, and still earned respect. Only 515 units were built in its debut year, making it one of the rarest Hurst editions ever. It kicked off a legendary line of Hurst Olds cars, but the 1968 model was the first to say, "We don't need permission to go faster." 1970, Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS 454. In 1970, Chevrolet introduced the Monte Carlo as a personal luxury coupe, refined, elegant, and seemingly not built for speed. But with the SS 454 RPOZ20 option, it became one of the most powerful and underrated sleepers of the decade. Behind its glossy chrome and formal grille was the LS 5454 V8 engine, delivering 360 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque. Paired with a TH400 automatic and rear-wheel drive, the nearly 4,000-pound coupe could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 6 seconds, and run the quarter mile in 14.5 seconds, matching GTOs and 442s of the era. All SS models came with heavy-duty suspension, front disc brakes, and rally wheels, but no loud decals, scoops, or spoilers like traditional muscle cars. The only clues were a small SS 454 badge and blacked-out grille. Only around 3,800 were built in 1970, making it a rare find today. The Monte Carlo SS 454 didn't shout to be noticed. It just needed a long enough stretch of road to prove that real power knows how to stay quiet. 1981, Yenko Turbo Z Camaro. In 1981, the Camaro Z28 was strangled by emissions regulations and mechanical limitations, down to just 175 horsepower. Most believed the muscle car era was over, but to Don Yenko, the legend behind the original COPO Camaros, it was the perfect time for one last act of rebellion. He partnered with Turbo International to build a different kind of Camaro, the Yenko Turbo Z. The 350 cubic inch L39 V8 was retained but equipped with a blow-through turbo system running 7 psi of boost, bumping output to an estimated 275 to 300 horsepower, nearly double the stock Z28. Stage 1 versions came with performance carburetors and subtle styling tweaks. The Stage 2 versions took things further. Wider tires, stiffer suspension, and shorter gear ratios, built for those who wanted to carve corners or hit the track. GM refused to endorse the project, so Yenko sold them through his independent dealer network, just like in the 60s. Only 19 units were built, including just 3 Stage 2 cars. After this car, the Yenko dealership closed its doors, leaving behind a legend that ended quietly but powerfully. 1977, Pontiac CanAm. If you blinked in 1977, you probably missed one of the strangest muscle cars Pontiac ever built. The Pontiac CanAm appeared for just a single model year, then vanished as if it never existed. Based on the Le Mans Sport Coupe platform, the CanAm was a bold mix of NASCAR-inspired design and true American muscle attitude. The car came in all white, with vibrant red-orange stripes, body-colored rally wheels, a rear spoiler, and most notably, a fully functional Trans Am-style shaker hood scoop. Under that scoop was a Pontiac 400 cubic inch W72 V8, rated between 200 and 220 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque. This was the same high-performance engine found in top-tier Trans Ams of the time, delivering surprisingly strong acceleration for such a large coupe. Despite rumors, there was no 455 big block option. The CanAm was offered in a single, potent configuration. Pontiac originally planned to build between 5,000 and 10,000 units, but when the shaker scoop mold broke and Le Mans sales slumped, the project was quietly canceled. Only 1,377 CanAms ever left the factory, making it one of the rarest and least-known muscle machines from the brand. 1991, Pontiac Firehawk SLP. While the Pontiac Firebird was becoming viewed as a fading relic of the muscle car era, behind the scenes, a small group of independent engineers quietly redefined performance. Not from GM no ads, and not exactly welcomed by the corporate boardrooms. This is the story of the 1991 Pontiac Firehawk SLP, a Firebird so fast it made GM uncomfortable. Built on the Firebird formula, the Firehawk was almost completely re-engineered by street-legal performance. Its L98 350 V8 was extensively upgraded. CNC aluminum heads, forged pistons, performance exhaust, and a tuned intake, pushing 360 horsepower and 390 pound-feet of torque, paired with a 6-speed manual from the Corvette ZR1. It launched from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 4.6 seconds and topped out at 160 miles per hour, beating many European exotics of the time. It didn't stop there. 4-piston Brembo brakes, 275 width tires, and a Dana 44 rear axle made it track-ready. And that's exactly what worried GM. It was faster than their beloved Corvette. Only 25 units were ever built. No ads, no showrooms, because GM didn't want it known. The Firehawk wasn't built for everyone. It was a whisper of rebellion in an era ruled by compromise. 1972. Motion Performance Vega Phase 3, 4, 5, 4. A Chevy Vega, small, lightweight, known for fuel economy. Sounds like the perfect candidate to cram a 454 big block V8 into, right? If that sounds insane to you, then you haven't met Joel Rosen. Under the Motion Performance banner, he created one of the wildest builds in automotive history. The 1972 Vega Phase 3454. The Vega weighed just 2,200 pounds, but Motion stuffed it with the LS 6454 cubic inch V8, the same engine used in the Chevel SS, making over 500 horsepower and massive torque. The result? 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 4 seconds and quarter-mile times in the low 9s. Legal drag strip numbers. But this wasn't a backyard project. Motion offered the full Phase 3 package, M22, rock crusher, gearbox, 12-bolt rear end, performance suspension, and signature striping. Each car came with a bold promise: run under 11 seconds or your money back. Then the government stepped in. The EPA shut it down after just a few units were made, turning the Vega Phase 3 into a forbidden legend. A muscle car that was never supposed to exist. 1969 Pontiac Executive 428HO. It looked like your boss's car, long, proper, front bench seat, and nothing that screamed speed. But if you pushed the throttle too far, the 1969 Pontiac Executive 428HO had a surprise waiting. The Executive slotted between the Catalina and Bonneville, a more affordable full-size luxury offering from Pontiac. But if you ticked the right boxes, that classy sedan hid a 428 cubic inch high-output V8, rated at 390 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque. The same engine found in top-tier Grand Prix SJ and GTO models. Despite weighing over 4,200 pounds, it could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 6.5 seconds. Unheard of for a full-size car in 1969. There were no performance badges, no stripes, no scoops, just a car that blended into traffic. Pontiac never marketed the Executive as a muscle car, and that's why it faded into obscurity. But for those who knew how to spec it right, the Executive 428HO was a beast in a business suit. Smooth, quiet, and capable of pinning you to your seat at will. 1977. Oldsmobile 442 Calais W30. Not every legend ends with a roar or a smoky burnout. Some exit the stage quietly. And the 1977 Oldsmobile 442 Calais W30 was just that. After nearly a decade of icons like the 1968 W30 and the 1970 Rocket 455, the final 442 on the A-body platform made its debut. By then, the muscle car era was all but over, and the luxurious Calais Coupe wore the 442 badge like a bittersweet goodbye. Under the hood was a 403 cubic inch L80 V8, making 180 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque. Not tire shredding, but still capable of running the quarter mile in around 16 seconds, respectable for an era ruled by smog laws. The W30 package still brought a touch of performance spirit. dual snorkel air cleaner, firmer suspension, enhanced cooling, and a limited slip rear. But the exterior was all class: opera windows, chrome trim, and plush velour inside. A muscle car in a luxury robe. After 1977, the 442 name became more of a trim level than a performance badge. But the Calais W30 was the final time the 442 carried even a flicker of the wild spirit from a bygone era. Some cars are born to shine, and some simply leave a quiet mark in the hearts of those who truly understand them. The cars in today's video aren't center stage icons, but maybe that's exactly what makes them unforgettable. Because sometimes, what makes a car special isn't on the spec sheet, it's in the story it carries. The story of engineers who dared to be different, and drivers who sought what few others even noticed. If you feel like you just discovered something new, that means this video was made for you. Drop us a comment and let us know which car left the biggest impression on you. And if you want to keep uncovering these forgotten legacies, hit subscribe, because there are still so many stories waiting to be told.